Market via Eswatini, this is 2 p.m. Central African time, and this is the Thursday edition of FESBC Market View. Very good afternoon to you. I'm your host, Sifiso Malo. This is your trusted guide through the stories shaping our business landscape. And today, we want to spotlight a significant commitment from Eswatini's leading business federations, a pledge that underscores their dedication not only to growth, but to ethical practices and social protection. Now, picture this, fresh out of Johannesburg, where the ILO hosted an enlightening workshop. Local leaders have affirmed their stance on labor standards and fair wages. Very interesting. We want to navigate through this vital discussion. We'll hear from the voices pushing these principles forward, as well as some of the comments that are being made there as this development keeps developing. Let's dive into the conversation that could redefine the workforce experience. We'll start the show by looking at this interesting story. In our first story, local businesses organizations have committed to helping their members in following labor standards and ensuring social protection, which includes adhering to the country's gazetted wages for employees and not less. The participants from the Federation of Eswatini Business Community and Business Federation of Eswatini were speaking shortly after the Media and Communications Officers Workshop on Employment and Labor Issues. This is by the International Labour Organization in Johannesburg, South Africa.
The Federation of Eswatini Business Communities, Sakile Shabangu, says most of their members are in the informal sector. Some of them have employees, which makes the work of the Federation more intense, as they will have to vigorously engage them on the importance of adhering to labor laws. He says FESBC will take the wealth of information provided by the International Labour Organization in the workshop to better handle employer and employee matters.
Njengoba singamele bosomabhizinisi labancane nabosomabhizinisi laba on the medium enterprise, lapho khona ukhenza ukuthi most of them they are under the iceberg. Lokho ukuthi bayasebenta bona but basebentela ukuthi bathole kudla lebangakwendela imindeni yabo. Sakhanza lokho ukuthi vele there is a need ukuthi njengoba sesifikile sing-FESBC safunza from ILO standards ukuthi kufuna vele sihambe sokuthela ekhaya sikuthele kubo bonke in terms of ma-wages ukuthi ba-comply to the standard lesibekwe nguhulumende wethu ukuthi kusenjadwe ngaso.
From here, we will, as buffet, we will go and sensitize our members in terms of the adhering to the labor laws of the country and implementing the conventions as stipulated by ILO, and also assist them when they face problems in terms of understanding those laws.
The communications officer in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, Nompilo Mncina, highlights the importance of the workshop, whilst communications officer in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sikumbuzo Pembe, shares his take-home from the workshop.
It was a very informative workshop, I might say. The media was capacitated on the importance of social dialogue, promoting it, as well as advocacy in any labor issues and matters that affect the country. The business sector as well has been very crucial in this workshop as well, because they are the ones that employ eMaswati, and they need to know the decent work practices that are implemented by the Decent Work Country program that was launched in 2022 by the Ministry of Labour. And also employees as well. Employee is also part of this training, and they need to know their rights as well and how they can report such matters either to government or wherever structures that they are in place in their workplaces.
And particularly for me, what stuck with me was the discussion on issues of migration, where we talked about the significance of protecting the rights of people, whether documented or undocumented, especially those in the textile industry. We've seen that there's a groundswell of very, very, very disturbing stories where their rights were violated and so forth. And this calls for collaboration between the 4 countries that are here, which is South Africa, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, to ensure that these issues are discussed, even at government level, to ensure that our sisters who work, in other countries, their rights are protected, and we ensure that there are good labor practices.
The International Labour Organization is the only tripartite UN agency since 1919. It brings together government, employers and workers of 187 member states to set labour standards, develop policies and devise programs promoting decent work for all women and men. For FESBC Market View, Nelson Langamandla, Johannesburg.
That's it for our business segment. For our business news segment, we'll go for a net break. We profile the Federation of Eswatini Business Community on what it says to farmers under the Federation after the break.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds, full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you'll go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
In our Enterprise Watch segment, the Federation of Eswatini Business Community says all farmers under the Federation will be trained on green businesses to ensure that their businesses are sustainable. FESBC's Chief Executive Officer Ben Similane shares how they are planning to help Eswatini by reducing carbon emissions by helping the small and medium enterprises to go green.
Today, CEO, we are talking about greening business. Why is it important for small and medium enterprises to go the route of being green?
The government of the Kingdom of Eswatini ratified a Paris Agreement which emphasizes or commits the country to contribute in lessening the carbon emission, improving the environment, because the change of the climate is real, and it has, through the studies, it has been proven that the temperatures are going up each year, and if nothing is being done, there will be a time when agriculture will cease to exist because the weather is changing. So the main aim today is to involve the MSMEs so that in whatever they do, their businesses, their products, they incorporate the environment aspect in their businesses and lessen the carbon emission. We call it greening the business in that way. The SMEs are the backbone of the economy in Eswatini because they employ a large number of people, and there's no employment today if you want to apply for employment. Hence, we need to protect their businesses. They have a large role, and I will zoom into agriculture, which dominates the some of the economic activities that we do. We find that some of them are involved in irrigation, and you find that they need energy in the form of electricity. And how we generate electricity, me and you know that they burn fossil fuel, which is not very friendly to the environment. Hence, we promote the greening. They can adopt strategies which will promote greening, such as using solar, using the sun, energy from the sun, which is a renewable energy. It will have a big impact in the future, not only in lessening the cost, but also in protecting the environment. And also growing trees. Some of them are in the forestry industry. You know that a tree consumes carbon dioxide. It reduces the carbon, which again assists in the environment. So there's quite a lot that they can do. And also we've come to create that awareness to them that even the financiers, the people who provide finance, the banks, are also taking that route. You may find that it's going to be difficult to get a loan if in your plan you don't prove that you will be assisting in greening the environment. The markets, as we speak right now, overseas markets are very strict in knowing how you produced that. Did you incorporate environmental controls, that sort of thing. So for your product to sell, you must, whatever you do, you must green the environment. Yeah.
I want you, CEO, to talk to us in detail about how you are going to help the small and medium enterprises, because we know that going green means investing a lot of money. What are some of the things that they should do in order to, amongst other things, cut the costs?
Okay, you've touched on the nerve of the seminar that we have. This is a global phenomenon. It involves everyone around the world. So the direction that the world is taking now is that those with money, those with finance, are keen now to direct their funds towards greening the environment. So they are willing and able to support all those initiatives that talks about greening the environment. So you will, in future, you will find that some of the financial institutions will have to be accredited. And once you are accredited, then you will receive funds from overseas, where they borrow funds, it will be easy. Right now, maybe I'm not in a position to disclose, but I'm aware that there is one financial institution in Southern which has already been accredited. And therefore, they will have access to funds, especially for those SMEs which are pushing the agenda of greening the environment. We are pushing the gospel of innovation. We would like business people, Bosoma business, to think, innovate, and come up with new ideas on how we can protect the environment. Circular economy, when you produce something, have that in mind, that whatever product you are producing, where will it end up? I'm producing this jacket, where will it end up? I'm producing a refrigerator, where will it end up? So we need to start thinking about where you can use the same thing. Once it's used, it can be recycled for something else, so that it doesn't get thrown away or create a nuisance somewhere. So we will be promoting that. Innovation is the answer going forward. People must think and do things that will promote recycling, that sort of thing, renewable energy, less carbon, and so forth. In fact, you may or you may not be aware that other countries which are unable or which have gone overboard in producing this unwanted carbon, there is an agreement now that they can buy, they call it carbon credits. Yeah. And therefore, if you have those, if you accumulate those credits, I mentioned growing forestry. By growing forest, it can be calculated that you can have certain amount of credits up to a certain point, and then you can sell those. Those countries which are busy destroying the world, they can bring money to and buy those credits, and it will benefit the SMEs. Yeah.
I am from the conference CEO where you're conducting the workshop, and I have seen that the room is packed. It got me thinking, what criteria did you use to get those who will attend the workshop? I'm asking for the farmers who are in remote areas, will they be getting the opportunity to attend such a workshop?
Okay, it's a good question, by the way. We have organized, as a strategy within FESBC, we have organized ourselves into regions. We already have our region being organized. There's an executive committee for all. They meet regularly. They update their members on relevant information. The same applies to Lubombo. They are organized. We are about to organize Manzini. We're planning next week to assist them to choose their executive and organize themselves, and Shisolin next week. So by so doing, we were able to communicate with the regions, and we share when there is information that requires them. And in that way, they were able to organize themselves. We shared that we need people to participate in this initiative. And there was a big appetite. The numbers were huge. We had to stop some of them from coming because even now, if you can go inside there, the house is packed to capacity. So there is hunger for information and change, and we are quite excited.
It's very interesting, CEO, that you are touching the issue of carbon credits, because we have seen Eswatini, the central bank, the Financial Services Regulatory Authority, signing an agreement with Taiwan on the issue of carbon credits. But moving away from that, I just want FESBC to tell us how you are going to be assisting the farmers in the long run as they go green.
Well, the only thing I can say is that let's move together. Bongo Bosoma Business, we would like to help one another. FESBC is there for all business people. They must come and join, and we will push this agenda together, help each other so that they also achieve their objectives, attain their goals, and that would be our delight as well.
The information that you have shared, CEO, is very critical. We wish you the best as you ensure that small and medium enterprises in the country stay sustainable.
Greening our economy is still one of the biggest priorities as we grapple with climate change, as we try to reduce our carbon emissions. Let's go for a net break. We connect with Sunny Lesbia to highlight some of the leading markets in the world today.
Hi, I'm Alex. Want to catch a movie? Now, I know what you're thinking. I clicked to watch a video about value-added taxes, not movies. Well, taxes and movies have more in common than you might think. They both generate revenue, they can be really complicated, and some are just blockbusters. Like our old friend, value-added tax, also known as VAT, or goods and services tax. So, how do value-added taxes work? Let me explain. With Popcorn, obviously. The corn starts out in a field with a farmer growing his crop. He sells it to a company that takes that corn and puts it in fancy packaging. Then, that company sells the packaged products to the cinema, and ultimately to the customer. Now, let's rewind and watch that again. And this time, let's assume that the country where all this is taking place has a 10% value-added tax. Here's how that works. Our farmer sells his popcorn for $10, but the packaging company buying it, they actually pay him $11. So why the extra dollar? Because that's the 10% VAT. That same thing happens again when the company sells the packaged popcorn to the cinema for a profit. So now the price is $15. But with the added 10% VAT, the cinema actually pays $16.50. And then, finally, the cinema sells the popcorn to the customer for $20. And that customer, once the VAT has been added, is paying $22. So far, so good. But here's an added ingredient that advocates of VAT say makes the system really work. And that's tax credit for businesses. A tax credit is just an amount that a business can subtract from the VAT it owes the government. VAT makes it so that while everyone on the supply chain pays their 10% in tax, they also get tax credits for whatever's already been paid by those selling to them. So, across the whole process, it's a flat rate of 10%. In the end, only the consumers actually pay the VAT since they aren't granted a credit. Oh, great, it's starting. Let's go. The thing is, let's take this somewhere else. You may have noticed how popular that handsome actor was. Real star power. Well, that's kind of like value-added taxes. They're one of the biggest sources of tax revenue in the world. More than 160 countries have a VAT. Why? Well, there's less tax evasion. VATs are built in cost. So each business isn't just collecting the tax themselves. So they're motivated to report their taxes honestly to get those tax credits. And it's important that they do. While VAT rates are different in each country, the average VAT raises around a third of a country's tax revenue. So it's an important source of funding for everything from improving our infrastructure and countering climate change to creating equality and improving health and social safety nets. But just as with any movie, VATs have their critics. Some say that a VAT is unfair to poorer people because they spend most of their income, so they face a higher burden. But a lot of those concerns can be answered by using the money from VAT to help the most vulnerable. Some argue that reducing the VAT rate on basic food could be a solution, but it ends up benefiting those who don't need it and makes VAT collection more complex. That can be avoided by making sure that there's a single universal VAT rate and using progressive income taxes and cash transfers to support poorer households. And that's VAT. Cut. Feels like we could have gone for more of a Hollywood ending, right? That's VAT.
This is our market analysis. Analyst Bia joins us via a Zoom link to help us understand the many markets today and what they are telling us. Let's start with the U.S. market. Sanele, I welcome you into the program. Dow Jones Industrial Average showing a modest gain today, inching by 0.11%. I beg your pardon. What are some of the factors here underpinning this slight upward movement?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewer. So what we're seeing in the US is that those shifts in terms of what we expect in terms of a Trump presidency, and also trying to just oppose that with the inflation outlook for the Federal Reserve Bank, and also just to try and chart a way forward for what it would mean for the US economy. So we saw yesterday inflation numbers coming in terms of the CPI data, still staying consistent with what we expect in terms of going forward into December. So we are expecting the Federal Reserve Bank to continue with those interest rate cuts. But what we are waiting for today, Mr. Nxumalo, is basically to see how those figures are going to turn out in terms of, the inflation figures based off of that producer kind of sentiment. So we're waiting to see the data come in today, and waiting to see sales data coming in, and have the unemployment figures coming in. And most likely they will make a case for a further cut in December, and then we're going to start seeing a rethinking of the interest rate path come into next year, and as we look where how President Trump's policies are going to be. And then moving on into Europe, what we are seeing there in Europe is that minor gain in terms of work. The markets are expecting to go, but the nervousness around the Trump presidency still remains in the markets because the S&P 500, the FTSE 100, the German DAX, and the French CAC, they're all trading positively today, but still on those very low levels because of the tariff issues. And if you recall back in June, July, we did make mention on this very program that we are seeing Europe coming up with tariffs against China-made EVs. And now what we are going to see coming into play with the Trump presidency is even more tariffs for European commodities going into the US markets, and also even more tariffs for China-based commodities, and that is actually going to hurt the global economy even further. And this uncertainty really is not soothing in any way, because what we are seeing, more especially when you move into Asia, that's where this uncertainty around what Trump will do comes into more stark terms. When you look into what is happening in the mainland, and when you look at what's happening in Japan, and also look at what is happening in that Hong Kong territory. So what we are seeing there is those impacts of, we just saw yesterday Marco Rubio being appointed the Secretary of State, and that's a very hard line against Chinese commodities, and we do expect those sentiments to come into the markets. And then you couple that with the weak demand within the mainland, and those very poor policies that we expected were going to be utilized to actually beef up the market, and the Chinese market particularly. But we are not seeing that, and that tends to weigh on demand globally. And we have both Europe looking east as they thinking of how to navigate the new and upcoming Trump policies. And now with this very weak demand story within China, then that now also puts in that other component of uncertainty into the markets, and how we are going to all try to navigate a Trump presidency. And then coming into South Africa again, we are seeing that the JSE has actually regressed, losing quite significantly if you just focus on where it was just last week at around that 87,000 mark in terms of volumes. And then now we're back on that 83,000 mark in terms of volumes. That's purely because, if you look into the dynamics into South Africa, if you look at the relations within BRICS, and also if you look at the stance that South Africa has taken against Israel, and which is a very well-known ally for the Middle East. So all those uncertainties coming into play on how South Africa is now going to navigate this very uncharted terrain coming into a Trump presidency, with all those economic grouping and those economic looking type of contingencies. So we're seeing that JSE is also just trying to take in the data, and also trying to take in the impact of what it would mean for interest rates to stay higher for longer in the US, given that Trump's policies might likely be more inflationary. And we are seeing that playing into the currencies as well. The dollar has continued to benefit against the rand, the domestic currency. It has also continued to benefit against all major currencies across the globe. So that's purely because with an inward-looking Trump policy, there are those expected $700 mark just last week before Trump took office. So we're seeing that trade-off with the dollar being more lucrative and people shifting their holdings to that dollar. And Brent crude relatively at ease at around $72 per barrel. And that's purely because of that weak demand situation that the world over is trying to factor into consideration. And also, the tensions in the Middle East are not weighing in that much on the price of gold. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Thank you so much for highlighting all those figures that you've highlighted. Very, very insightful. That is the end of our market analysis and certainly the end of our FESBC Market View edition today. We hope that you have yourself a very good and blessed afternoon. Bye-bye.